Nuruddin, Orike, I was able to pick something out of your lecture. As in, I have worked for about 20 years. I resigned 2007, and I'm on my own at the moment. So what am I trying to pick out? Okay. Um, the day I dropped my resignation letter, my boss was somehow confused that where am I going? What do I want to do? I said, well, I promised myself anytime I'm 40, I'm not going to work for anybody. I'm going to set up my own organization or business, something like that. But I found out that that was the time I know I was important in that organization. So I've been able to build myself up, working with them for about 12 years. I've achieved a lot, so I think I don't have anything to contribute to them again. But I realized they have been enjoying my services, my being hardworking, and the rest of them. So I pick it out from when you said Ajoki Aye, Ashakiorun. I discovered that I have, Shake myself. You understand? From where I work. So they are afraid to lose me and my being working hard. You understand? So you can motivate yourself while you are working, improve yourself. I improved myself a lot. 12 years I worked with them. I was able to finish my education and the rest of them and acquire more skill. Now, during my working service, I only know how to hold the screwdriver and the plier and the mechanical tools. But now I'm in the IT line and I'm very good at it. Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah. Any other person?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, my own is not really a question, but just a little contribution to what the speaker has been saying. I really enjoyed the OT because what he really spoke on is something that can inspire you. Okay, it's something that can inspire the Muslims to actually think high. We dream high, not like before that you just set a small goal for yourself, you achieve the small goal, and you think you have gotten everything. What I want to add is consistency. When the speaker was talking, made mention of somebody, whether you become a professor or something like that. The reason why I'm trying to contribute is that I've been in the lecturing stuff before. Let me tell the whole world that being a professor does not mean that you are the brightest person. The only thing is that you are consistent. Doing what you are doing consistently and you continue and you become a professor. I've seen a situation whereby a third-class student gradually became a professor. And we will go back to his former record and see where you started. So what I'm saying in essence is that we Muslims, we should try to dream high. Let us dream high. Don't let us dream that, my dream is to buy a car. And you buy a car, you think you are made. Let us dream, dream as if somebody will hear your dream and say, it's not possible. Tell yourself that it is possible. And try to be consistent with what you are doing. I know we're going great. Thank you very much.
Allahu Akbar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
My name is Lawal Ibrahim, a 300 level law student at the University of Lagos. What I want to say is not a question, but just a contribution. I think it's pertinent that we commend the commendables and we condemn the condemnables. And at this moment, I would love to commend the commendables. I grew up at a pt4 and my orientation of Islam is just all about Salat, Zakat, Iman, Hajj, and whatever, the pillars of Islam at large. But since I've joined MICA, I've had a total reorientation of what Islam should be and what Islam teaches and what Islam imbibes. And, believe you me, this is, attainable with the realities of 21st century as far as our society is concerned. And I really must commend the speaker. He has done a very thorough job, because I love the dexterity with which he demystified the subject matter. Even though I'm not business inclined, I love politics, and I've actually been able to pick one or two things. And additionally, from what he said, I've also been able to distinguish myself, to make a brand for myself. I'm a parliamentarian in school. I'm a member of the legislative echelon of the Law Student Society. And I'm not the only blind student to have ever gone through that faculty. But I've braved the odds to rescue myself from the cemetery of the living dead. And my driving factor has always been, how did you meet Islam? What's your contribution to Islam? And how did you live Islam? And in my own way, I've decided to contribute to Islam politically by being a role model, by being the signature of all eyes. Thank you.
Takbir. Can we go to the sisters? Or except if the sisters don't have any contribution. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. My name is Sultan Adenrele. I came in briefly towards the end of the lecture. My big aha from you was that we always forget that there is somebody there to help you. In the past 4 weeks, I think I forgot that, and that has been more like a big learning for me. Just come and sit down here right now. My question is, for someone like you, do you have any program in terms of mentorship and mentee program? That's something that we need in Islam. We have a couple of guys that have better exposure than we have, and we just do not know where they are when we need them.
Okay, I'll take your question at the end.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Badigesh Raju Daud. I have 3 questions, 2 for you, then 1 for the benevolent cooperative. The very first one, yesterday I was chatting with a cousin of mine, and we were talking about Arsenal coming to Nigeria to play, and that the tour has been cancelled. And he linked it to the issue of insecurity, the Boko Haram. And I knew where he was going because he's a Christian. I was very angry. I said, it's not due to the fact that there is insecurity in Nigeria, that the match is still going to come on. But just walked away, and that's one. Assuming Nigeria is a brand, couple of plethora of problems, insecurity, unemployment, all sorts of, how can you manage a difficult brand or a complex brand? Because I believe you're a brand specialist. The second question, you talk about loyalty. My colleague in the office, about last year we were discussing, and I just threw up the question that, who do you owe your loyalty to? And he said, our boss. And I said, what about if she's removed tomorrow? Will you still owe your allegiance to the... And the discussion went on and we couldn't get to a point, but I said, my own loyalty belongs to Allah, then to the organization. How do you change the mindset of somebody who has that kind of mindset that, yeah, because now I have a new boss. Does it still continue to hold allegiance to the... That's number 2. Then cooperative, your scorecard is fantastic. I was at the program last week, but just like any business, doing business in Nigeria is very, very, very difficult. How do you, even the banks are crumbling, a lot of things are happening, and even the big corporations are closing up, they're closing shop. Have you put in any mechanism to really checkmate any eventuality whereby people have gone with loan that you give out to them? And how do you track them to understand that, yeah, the money given to them is meant for business, not some other stuff? Assalamu alaikum.
Alex, inshallah, we'll answer your questions at the end.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Azizat Isha. Actually, I came kind of late, and Alhamdulillah, I was able to understand the concept behind the earlier lecture. Actually, I want to commend this kind of idea because it's peculiar among Muslims that we are unable to apply the teachings of the Quran and the prophets in our lives. We seem to be living two different lives. People will say there's a religious life, there's a cultural life, and this is something that we see in Muslims. We see Muslims performing salat, reading the Quran, but they are unable to apply the lessons, the teachings of the Quran into their personal lives. You see the way a Muslim react to situation. They are not patient, they are not understanding, they are not believing. Yet they do read the Quran, and they most of the time they advise people to do the same thing, and they find it difficult to understand. So I am very, very happy that something like this came up, and the way Surah Al-Fatiha was broken down and applied in a practical life is to make us to understand that Islam is a way of life. Just everything, yeah, there's nothing about religious about it. It is the way you can wake, do everything you have to do till you sleep or till you breathe your last breath. MashaAllah.
Jazakumullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My name is Mustafa Mobalade Bashira. I would like you to please shed light on the issue of flexibility. Because some of us do not really understand that concept. Someone can mistake that for saying probably you work in Nigerian breweries and maybe you are going to advise the people, the employees there that kudaki your mamoti, you know, things like that. Or probably you work in a bank and the issue of hijab comes up and you are asked to take off your hijab and you are like, okay, I'm trying to be flexible. I'm trying to, you know, get to the highest level, the hierarchy, get to the highest level so that I will allow my other sisters who are coming up. You will lose your way eventually. You know, you are trying to bring up something, right? But you can say you are flexible. I want you to just expatiate on that flexibility. Thank you.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Okay. Jazakumullah khairan to all those who have given us contributions and the questions. And I'm quite happy to see that some of these lessons are things that are valuable to you. I just want to be sure that my own understanding of some of these lessons is not so different from your own understanding. And I'm happy to see a lot of some of the contributions. The brother has challenged us that as Muslims we need to dream big. Interestingly, I'm starting from Surah to Yunus. To me, that is the Surah of dreams. And when I go to conferences or seminars and I see the top motivational speakers come to the stage, the Feladrotes, the Nia Adesoyas, and I ask myself, what are these people saying? And they keep saying, oh, you need to dream, you need to dream. And the question a Muslim will be asking herself is, does Islam not talk about this? As Islam has not addressed this issue. I like what my brother said about how he has broken free from the current status quo. Islam as a religion, when the Prophet came, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the first to challenge status quo. And if you challenge the status quo, that is what brings about innovation. And innovation is the core of any business continuity. So, and I like some of the questions that have been thrown up. And it shows that, and like I said when I was starting, that this is an area that I'm happy that MICA has decided to do this, because it's an area that we always tend to separate. And there's no reference that we can always refer to. I try searching, maybe I didn't search enough, but there's always no reference, except people that have been privileged to, how do I put it, to be schooled in Islamic orientation, and also schooled in the business or personal development orientation. So for me, the biggest challenge I have now is how do we start drawing out these examples? And that's where the issue of mentorship also came out. And you will also see the lessons of mentorship within Surah to Yunus as well. So all these elements, sometimes you tend to feel like a lone ranger when you go to certain events or when you are in certain circles. And by the time you finish speaking, or by the time you finish interacting with people, and they look at, oh, you're a different kind of Muslim. And I always feel pained to the point of frustration that why must you say I'm a different kind of Muslim? Islam is a core. It has not changed. There are certain elements in Islam that will never change. How we apply it into our daily lives, it now depends on the individuals. And that's where the issue of flexibility comes in, and I'll talk about that as well. So it's important that not only for myself, but for those of us who have, I would say, made a success out of their career, how can we start drawing out these lessons? I wish I could write a book around this, and Allah willing, I would hope in the next couple of years, I'm able to write these lessons after my 40th country. Allah says we should travel around the world. I love traveling. And sometimes, some few weeks ago, I was in Morocco, and we went to the Asantu Mosque. I mean, you see white people, non-Muslims, coming to the Asantu Mosque, and they are overwhelmed by the sheer ingenuity that has been put into the Asantu. It's the tallest mosque that you have in Africa today. And you look at it and you ask yourself, how did these people do this? The entire city, when they were building the Asantu Mosque, the entire city contributed. It was not built by the government. It was not built by the authorities. It was built by the community. And in branding, one of the lessons we learned, any brand that is going to succeed must evolve from, must create a community, must create a movement. If you don't create a movement, your brand will not succeed. People who buy Apple products today, they don't buy because it is, well, now they buy because it is Apple. But it's a movement. To a level of being a cult, as it were. Because Apple has been able to create a movement around that brand that no matter what they create, the people will buy. That's why they've remained the most valuable company in America today, even richer than the American government. So these are some of the lessons that, and this is the challenge to some of us, and I'm also throwing that challenge to my brother, Sulaiman Olokodano, that you're also in this as well. Sulaiman Arigbabu, you're also in this. We need to start drawing out these lessons, and who knows, maybe we need to start blogging about it. Because from what my sister said, we don't find these examples amongst, in the Muslim community. We tend to always focus on the rituals of the religion, rather than the application of this essence of the religion to our personal lives. The rituals, you go to Juma on Friday, you are being told about Salat. The same things they've been telling you since when you were young. It's the same thing, oh, you need to perform Salat this way, you need to do your ruku this way. Those are rituals that we can always learn during any of the Salat. But a Juma service will be a point where you can take issues and tell people this is how Islam solved it in the past. We take classical Islamic understanding to solve contemporary Islamic issues, world issues. There are issues that Islam had already taken care of that we can start applying now. If you go to Surah Al-Hajj, Allah talked about the formation of of the fetus in the womb. That is deep science. If you go to Surah An-Nur, verse 34, Allah talks about the state of the unbelievers. He gave a parable of what the unbelievers are like. That they are in a state of darkness. A state of darkness that you find at the bottom of the sea. That when you stretch out your hand and you look at it, you will not see anything. You know, if you go home, read that verse and reflect on it. I think it's 34 or 35. You cannot have that kind of understanding in modern day world today if you are not involved in that kind of field. For you to know that the sea is dark, there are certain levels that you get in the sea or the ocean bed that it is dark. And you are talking about thousands of meters deep down the sea. The question we need to ask ourselves is, was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was he a diver? That he could dive with oxygen? You can't get to, scientists have told us that you can't get to that level without oxygen mask, without all the right diving equipment to get to the level. They even have a special transportation that takes them down, and they start studying the sea animals. It is completely dark. If you stretch out your hand, you won't see it. Now, the question we should ask ourselves is, how did the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did he know? If Allah is not the all-knowing, the all-seeing, and Allah has revealed this, it should be a starting point for research. And what Allah is trying to tell us in that verse is, you need to research. You observe something, you need to research it and see, how did this thing come about? It still marvels me today that the Quran talks about that. You can't dive, you can't swim to that level that you see darkness of the sea. It's not possible. It's not possible. You need special equipment to go down that level. And these are some of the lessons that, for me, really, really brings out the essence. One of the lessons I learned in the last few weeks, I was chatting with my brother outside. He said, I noticed that you've been in Silicon Valley. And the trip to Silicon Valley was to understand the core of innovation that is coming out of the US. The hub of innovation of the world today, they said it sits in Silicon Valley. And it is true. A lot of the inventions, I went to Facebook's first office, Google's first office. Microsoft went to Apple. And speaking to some of the tech entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. And one thing that we kept on seeing, even when we went to Stanford, was the core of innovation was that they always wanted to challenge the status quo. And I say to myself, Islam as at the time the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought Islam, I started talking about Islam, he was challenging the status quo. Nobody wanted to accept Islam. In fact, they were oppressed because they were challenging the status quo. But the lesson in that for us is that if you see a business model, if you see a business concept, even a career, you need to challenge the status quo. Okay, as an example, why must we pay for the phone calls that we make? Why must we pay for the phone calls that we make? By the time you start asking such questions, I start challenging. Can't people pay for something? Can't people pay for something and get the phone calls for free? There's a restaurant in Spain where they don't show you the menu. When you go into the restaurant, you know, they usually give you the menu. You look at the menu, you order what you want. In that restaurant, they don't show you the menu when you come in. is when you are leaving, they show you the menu. And they tick all the things that you have eaten, and the menu will serve as a memento for you. That restaurant is fully booked. If you want to eat in that restaurant, it's called El Bule. If you want to eat in that restaurant next year, you would have booked this. In fact, it's fully booked for next year. Because we're in July now, Abi. It's fully booked for next year. And it's one of the most valuable restaurants in the world. They have the top chefs of the world in that restaurant. And they only open for a few weeks in a year. They don't open every day. They don't open every month. They only open for a few weeks because they define their market. They define their product. They gave it a name. They branded it. And they challenge the status quo. There's a company in the US called Mismatch. People are used to buying socks in pairs, right? We still buy socks in pairs today. Mismatch came and said, we want to start selling socks in 3 pairs, in threes. And in fact, all 3 of them will not be of the same color or the same design. And before you know it, they created a trend out of that. Good or bad, they've challenged the status quo. They created a trend out of it, created a business out of it, and it's one of the most thriving businesses in the US. So if Islam has taught us to challenge the status quo, from people in Mecca worshiping 365 gods, and you tell them there's only one God. Even when Allah says, even the kalima itself, La, you start with no. La. You challenge Islam has challenged the current status quo of worshiping more than one God. La. No. No, it's not this way. It is this way. So sometimes it is good to and when people ask me, why have you, how come you have been, I want to count myself as a success in my career. Because there are 3 stages in life. 3 stages in career, 3 stages in business, 3 stages in personal development. The first stage is the stage of struggle. Struggle, a state of survival. I've been to a stage of struggle and survival. Personally. I've worked in a company where for 4 months I was not paid salary. And I kept on working. I've worked in this same company where at a point there was a day I only had 20 naira on me. As at the time I got to Falomo. I worked from Falomo to, from Obalende. I was working in Falomo. I worked from Obalende to Falomo. And I was sweating. By the time I got into the office, now my 20 naira was reserved. Because if I take a 10 naira bus out of that 20 naira, I will shortchange myself. I will not be able to buy anything to eat for lunch. And my plan was, if I use the 10 naira to buy lunch, I'll walk from Falomo to TBS. I'll take Molue, not even sitting, I'll take standing. And this, I'm being real. I'll take standing. It's 10 naira to Orile. From Orile, I'll walk from Orile to Mile 2. From Mile 2, I'll find my way from the estate by the time I get to my house. Those were the times. But one thing I learned very quickly, never despise humble beginnings. And that was what the Prophet ﷺ always told the companions. Never despise humble beginnings. He used to tell them, there will be a time that when Izaja and Nasirullahi wal Fatih will come. And it did come. Takbir. When the Izaja of Allah will come. And it came for me. Sometimes I look back now. We have our brother, Fola Adiola, who used to say, he used to hawk pepper when he was in Mushi. So you'll be in that state, you always be in that stage of survival and struggle. If you don't struggle, you will also. And people also tend to do a lot of things that are not right as well. Yahoo boys are hustling. But Allah said that we will struggle. We will struggle in the path of Allah. And we did struggle. Now we are getting to the stage of success. Success that you can afford to buy your own car. Success that you can afford to... I remember when I first paid my first house rent, and I moved in to the building in Ikorodu, and people were asking, how come you be working in here and be living in... I said, well, that's what I can afford. As at that time. And when I moved in, I had this kind of fan. Okay, this one, my own had cover. This one does not have cover. And when Fela Drotoye tells you his own story, he said he started his company from his own room with his wife, Tara Fela Drotoye. And they had this kind of fan with no cover. From one room. Tara studied law. Today, Tara does what? Makeup. She gave it what? A name. Orekelewa. She defined a brand attributes to it. Now she makeup, 200,000. Kilo day. But people are paying for such services. But they never despise humble beginnings. Fela Drotoye used to say that, look, I had gone to collect a check of 3.5 million naira on Okada. So you get to a stage where you are successful. And sometimes you will struggle before you get there. Except you are born into a rich family. Some of us are not. But when you now get to a stage of success, you now start asking yourself, what is the next thing? The next thing you should start thinking about is the stage of significance. What people call legacy. In fact, it scares me so much today. In 2007, I made 64 flights in 6 months. And I've been flying around to almost 32 countries now. In fact, some flights I have done 16 hours stretch. In some few days, I'm flying from Lagos to Dubai, Dubai to Shenzhen. No, Beijing, then Shenzhen in China. By the time we calculated the total hours, it was almost 24 hours. But somehow, the name of Allah always stabilizes that plane. Takbir. Not because that somebody is special. But every day I try to reflect on the last Dana crash, where we lost. People say, well, we lost a brother. For me, it was more than a brother, it was more than a friend. And it was just that split second. That's how many minutes? 3-5 minutes to landing. On a Sunday like this, we're having a meeting, and he was supposed to join us in that meeting. It was a less than 1 hour flight. So it was for him to land and join us in that meeting. Bismillah, Kulu Allah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Kulu Allahu Ahad. Allahu Samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. May Allah continue to bless his soul and admit him into our Jannah Firdaus. But what I'm trying to bring out is life is so ephemeral that even when you're in the stage where you're trying to struggle and survive, know that when you succeed, start thinking about legacy. Every day what I think about is legacy. What will people say about me? What would I have left behind? So it's now a stage of significance. What difference would I make? What impact would I make in the lives of people? And that's why when I said earlier, when I was defining success, it's also about planting the seeds that benefit others. So all these things come together. And I'll bring the example of Prophet Yunus alayhi salam. And it's instructive that we learn from this. This is my own, like I said, I'm not trying to do the exegesis of the Quran. I'm not qualified to. But this is my own understanding from it. Allah says in the beginning of Surah to Yusuf, Allah says, Alif Lam Mim. The miracles of the Quran are none but Allah knows their meanings. We can't explain those letters, Alif Lam Mim, and I don't even want to try to explain them. But there's something Allah said. Allah says these verses of the Quran from a clear book are the things that are supposed to provide a guidance and a blessing to us. So the Quran is supposed to be a guidance and a blessing to us, if only we're able to take this minute and apply it to ourselves. In verse 4 of this surah, Prophet Yusuf was telling his father, Allah says we should remember the time. This is also part of the thing, reflection. We should remember when Prophet Yusuf said to his own father, "Oh my father, verily, I saw in a dream 11 stars and the sun and the moon. I saw them prostrating themselves to me." I'll spend some time on this particular verse. Prophet Yusuf had a dream. And I like what my brother said, that as Muslims, maybe we don't dream enough. And besides, it's a dream. Why not dream big? It's only a dream. There's nobody that will stop you from dreaming. It's your dream. So if you are going to dream at all, why not dream big? Why limit yourself? Provided you don't cross the boundaries of Allah. What is in the hands of Allah is even more than what we are thinking. And that which you think is big is infinitesimal in the sight of Allah. Is nothing in the sight of Allah. So Prophet Yusuf had that dream. And what did he do? And this, for visionaries, for leaders. Leaders are visionaries. There's a difference between having seen and having a vision. There's a huge difference. There's a difference between having sight and insight. So for the great leaders that have been successful in the world today, there will be people who are visionaries. They see beyond what everybody is seeing. And you can only seize what you can see. And it doesn't mean by the fact that you are looking at it. It just infers that there's something inside of you that sees more than what your eyes actually see. Takbir. So, Prophet Yusuf had this dream. He was a visionary. He was a leader. But as leaders always have mentors. Takbir. In this case, Prophet Yusuf referred to his father. So when you have these dreams, when you have these goals, what I call audacious goals, you need to have somebody that you can share it with. That is the first lesson I can pick from that verse. That when you have a dream that someday I'm going to build a mosque in every state of Nigeria. Or I'm going to build a school, an Islamic school in every state of Nigeria. When you have a dream, and there's nothing wrong if you have a dream that you become rich. After all, we had companions of the Prophet who their brand was richness. Takbir. Abraham ibn Auf was brand wealthy, brand rich. Brand Dangote of today. Well, maybe Dangote is even small. Combine all of them together. But he didn't lose sight of his end goal, even though he was rich. They said when the companions of the Prophet ﷺ got to Medina, and I'll still come back to talk about trends, because Mecca and Medina, they are trends. And in business, if you don't understand the trends, before you know it, you're number one for 14 years. Before you know it, you lose your number one. Talking about my own company, Nokia. For 14 years, we were number one. But we lost sight of trends. We lost sight of trends. And before we knew it, we lost our number one. Today, we say we're a challenger. But what we used to console ourselves is a company that's transformed for 147 years. And if you know how to transform, you will keep going. So when they got to Medina, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam paired Abrahman ibn Auf with Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas was brand Istijaba, Takbir. He was brand, I pray, I get. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas were told if, before he raises his hand to say, Allahumma, Allah has already accepted his prayer. It's that kind of brand that I want to be. Inshallah. That before you say Allahumma, Allah knows what you want to ask. And you already have it. So Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas was confident. And when you have a brand attribute, you are confident about it. Some people confuse it with pride. It's not pride, it's not arrogance. You are just confident about who you are and what you are. So they were paired. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas said, look, this is my house, I'll divide it into two. You can take half, I'll take half. This is my wealth. Take half, I'll take half. The stars don't like hearing this. These are my wives. Choose which one you want. And I'll divorce her so that you can marry her. Because Abraham ibn Auf was not allowed to take anything when he was leaving Mecca. He was not allowed to take anything. And they thought that he was going to crumble. But they don't know his brand essence. His brand essence is Midas touch. When he touches anything, it turns to gold. It turns to wealth. That was his own brand. So I get frustrated when I see people today. And I'm like, we have Muslims who have been super rich. We have Muslims who have been super spiritual. And these two people got their passport, their visa, and their first class ticket to Al-Jannah. Takbir. So how come these two things can't coexist? How come we don't have a Dangote coming to do tafsir or this kind of thing? I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm not qualified. Maybe a Dangote should be doing this. We have seen an example in the CBN governor, Lamido Sanusi. And we have seen that kind of role model. And wallahi, I think it's something that we should all emulate. You have a balanced understanding of Islam. And you're not found wanting in your career, in your profession. Sometimes I feel like having the boldness of Sanusi that you can talk to, you can call the bluff of anybody because you know what you are, you know how good you are. And you're humble enough because Islam has taught you humility. So Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas and Abraham ibn Auf were in this state. And that's another lesson. When you live for others, you live for yourself. Abraham ibn Auf told him, don't worry, my brother. No need to do all this. Just show me the way to the market and I'll be fine. Takbir. Show me the way to the market and I'll be fine. And Abraham ibn Auf went to the market and he was indeed fine. He started building his business again and he was still super rich. So when we need to dream, let us dream big. I have this dream that one day I'll be a change agent that will drive the transformation and innovation process in Ogun State. It's a dream. After all, why not dream it big? So, but when you have this kind of dreams, it's also good that you also have people that you can share it with. One thing I learned very early in my career and in my personal development is never share your dreams with people who don't believe in you. They are called dream killers, vision stalkers. They'll tell you, they'll give you 1,000,001 reasons why it will not work. They'll tell you 1,000,001 reasons why it is not you. But Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam chose his father as his mentor. And he confided in his father and said, this is the dream I have. Because there's always higher wisdom. There are people who have gone, remember we talked about best practices. People who have gone before you, who have that experience. And what did his father say? Which is another lesson in personal development. His father said, "Oh my son, relate not your vision to your brothers, or else they will arrange a plot against you." It's not that you can't relate your dreams, your vision to people, but choose the kind of people that you relate your vision with. There are people that you need to bounce it off and say, what do you think about this? But these are people who believe in you, who understand your brand essence. And they'll be able to give you factual feedback. They are not people who are cynical. They will give you honest criticisms and tell you the reason why and how you should go about it. So his father said, don't share your dream with people that will plot against you. And this is a lesson in business. Never share your vision with competition. Never share your vision. In most companies today, we are made to sign non-disclosure agreements. In fact, there are some emails that I receive that have permissions. I can't reply, I can't forward, I can't copy. I can't right-click and copy. There are some emails I receive from very senior management in my company. I can't click forward. I can't click reply. Everything is disabled once you receive that email. Because they know that competition is coming after you. And the easiest way to defeat your competition is to defeat them intellectually. And that's why you see companies going around to poach the best of the best from their competition. Today in my competition, we joke that we have an alumni desk within our competition. Because they're always coming after us to pick the best of the best. So when you're doing certain things in business, you don't share with competition. This might sound funny, but I don't know if anybody knows the law of trafficator on 3rd Mainland Bridge. Oh. Okay, there are some certain laws, unwritten laws, on Lagos roads that there are some business lessons that you can derive out of it. We have the law of trafficator. You have the law of Lasma. You have the law of Molue. And there's law of Ikorodu Road. That's a separate session. But I'll tell us two out of those laws. The law of trafficator. And be conscious of this when you are driving on 3rd Mainland Bridge, especially when you're in traffic. The moment you're in traffic and you're trying to move, you know when you get to that Adekule area, and you're trying to move to the outer lane, driving lessons tells us that you need to trafficate and say to the next, the driver coming, now I want to go to this lane. Please give me way. In Lagos, it doesn't work. The moment you start trafficating, you see everybody. And they keep going. The worst culprits, they know themselves. Once I look at the person from my mirror and I just allow, she will not allow me. It's just a natural instinct. The moment you start trafficking on Third Mainland Bridge that you want to, they won't give you chance. Maybe 2 out of 10, maybe the person is tired. Or the person is on a call. Or they are pinging. Then they will not allow you. But guess what? What I learned very quickly on Third Mainland Bridge. Don't trafficate. Don't trafficate. Check your mirror very well. Your side mirror, your inner mirror. If the road is free, choke your head. The moment you start, even if it is free, the moment you start trafficking, you just see somebody, especially all these downfalls, they will just come. And before you know it, they've bashed your car and you start the story. So, but the lesson from it is that you don't tell your competition when you are coming out. Takbir. You don't tell your competition when you are coming out. I work with 8 operators, mobile operators, across West Africa. MTN, Etisalat, Airtel, Glo, Vodafone, Tigo, MTN in Ghana, and Airtel, Orange in Senegal. And when I go to some of these meetings, it's so interesting. You are made to sign non-disclosure agreements. Oh, I don't want Etisalat to say, I don't want MTN knowing about this. MTN will say, Etisalat must not know about this. And it's a closely guarded secret. And they're so aggressive when it comes to being the first to launch a particular product or service. And you see, MTN will now slam on it. Another first from MTN. You don't tell your competition that you're coming out. And that's one of the lessons Prophet Yusuf Sada taught him. Relate your vision to people who would guide you, who would provide you with from their experience. And dream big. Because it was a big dream that I had, that 11 stars, the sun and the moon will all bow to him. So that's one lesson I pick from Prophet Yusuf. And if you read the entire surah, there's a whole lot of lessons. But I'll jump quickly to another lesson that I also picked up from this particular surah. You know, we all know about the issue he had with the wife of the Aziz when she was trying to seduce him. At the end of the day, she tore his shirt, she quickly turned the table against him and framed him up. And before you knew it, he was sent to prison. While Prophet Yusuf was in prison, he met some other prisoners, 2 prisoners there, and they also had a dream. And because Allah has given him that brand essence, that he will be an interpreter of dreams, he helped them out by interpreting their dreams. And they never forget. That's another lesson. When you help people, people don't forget. Except the person is wicked and the person is jealous. When you help people, they don't forget. No matter how small. And when you hurt people, they may forgive you, but they don't forget as well. So you help them. And one thing that happens with when you help people, your colleagues, either in your business or in your office, one thing that happens quickly is that you find what they call the word of mouth to spread. And one of the biggest marketing concepts today is word of mouth marketing. And a lot of the multi-level marketing products thrive on this. You never see the billboard of Tianchi. You never see the billboard of Forever Living. What they thrive on is word of mouth marketing. One person telling the other. So Prophet Yusuf told them that, look, after I explained their dreams to them, he told them that they should mention him to the king when they get out of the prison. And unfortunately, they forgot. So after some time, one of them was in the king's court, and the king had a dream. And he was looking for somebody to interpret that dream. And that person remembered, the same way when you give good value, when you satisfy your customer, they will always remember, there's somebody, there's a brother that can do this for you. Let me call the brother. The same way if you give bad service or you don't add value to the person, they will keep talking about you. And in customer service, one thing we learn quickly is that if you give bad service, people tend to tell 10 to 15 people. If you give a good service, they will only tell one person. And that's why people strive to improve their customer service. And this is one of the things that happened to Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And the king of Egypt said, verily I saw in a dream 7 fat cows, whom 7 lean ones were devouring, and 7 green hairs of corns, and 7 others dry, all notables. Explain to me my dream, if truly you can interpret dreams. Sometimes people call to question your expertise as well. If truly you're a consultant, you're a management consultant, this is the business challenge we have. Please help us to solve it. And Prophet Yusuf said, that when he was interpreting that dream, he said, for 7 consecutive years, you will sow as usual. And for 7 consecutive years, you will reap very little. And you have very little to eat. If I'm to derive some personal development lessons from that, there's so many things you can start pulling out of that. Number one is, he was able to show his expertise in the area of interpreting dreams. So it means that you must know your onions. You must know your job very well. And in explaining this, I was reflecting over it and I asked myself, for 7 years, you continue to reap. After 7 years, it will be a time of drought. Research has shown that any small business that is started today, most small businesses fail in their first 5 years. If your business crosses 5 years, there's a very slim chance that that business will go bad. There's a slim chance that that business will close down. From 7 years, you are in sustenance mode. That is one lesson. That when you are doing a business plan for your business, always look at 5 to 7 years. And don't think of getting all your profits quickly before the 5 years. I started a company, and within the first year, we made very significant returns. But we didn't last the second year. We failed and we closed down. We lost everything. I'm talking about a business where I made, let me put it down, my first million. Tekbir. Like Yorubas will say, Omode Omo, how do they say it now? There's something about Akara. I'm trying to remember. That's him. The first money that you make, you use it to do what? To buy Akara. Not knowing that if you save enough money, later you can still buy shawarma. So in the first year of business, we made some very quick returns. And wallahi, it was profitable in that industry. But we quickly delved into getting an office space. We had an office space about half of this hall. We had a big launch of the business. A company that we started from one laptop. In fact, the job that got us, the presentation that got us that laptop, because I was more on the marketing side, and I had a partner, a brother who was on the technical side. The presentation, the product, everything was on one laptop. We were working from my house. The business name that we registered was my father's house. It was not even, so we were shuttling. Sometimes when we go for Tajud, after we finish Tajud, we stay back and we do business. From one laptop. We had one very important client. I won't mention the name. Very huge client. And we made some significant, we've arrived now. We have made. So we said, okay, let's make this thing, we need to be very professional, you know. When you have money, your English will change. You need to be very professional, you know, we need to have a proper office. Your English will change. Somebody would think that I have gone to the UK for like 10 years and back. So we started by getting an office in a very prime place in Ikeja. We bought laptops, we hired people, even though we didn't know what they were going to do. In fact, we hired a receptionist, even though we didn't need a tech bill. Sometimes it was painful, but sometimes when I reflect on it, I just laugh. We had exquisite furniture. I had my office with, you know those chairs that you had, that massages your back. We only had one client too. And we continued and we were thinking, okay, let's start expanding. You know, when client comes, who told you your client will come to your office? Your client will not come to you. You have to go after them. So we had this warped idea that, our clients will come to us, so they need to see a very good office. We need to be presentable, so we need to have a, and I'm like, eh? We had a training room, we had this kind of, you know, we had project, and I was telling myself, can we sustain this? I was saying pinching and saying, can we sustain this? But somehow we're carried away with the fact that we have arrived. We didn't think about sustenance. Within the last 2 years, the business crashed. It not only affected us as founders of the business, we had pulled in people whose lives and livelihood were dependent on the business. So we not only affected them, we also affected their families. And I'm happy that a lot of them have decided afterwards. In fact, we learned the biggest lesson of not talking, sharing your vision with the competition. So we had a major project, and one of the vendors says, look, how did you people get this kind of project? How did you get this kind of clients? It's only established companies that get this kind of clients. We said, well, in Laila to Quadri like this, the sheikh used to tell us that never ask for something small, always ask for something big. I didn't understand it until we asked for something big. And that big thing came and we couldn't manage it. So what is in the hands of Allah is bigger than what we think. So they asked us to merge with a particular company, a well-established, one of the biggest software firms in Ghana. And they had business concerns, a lot of clients across West Africa. So they arranged a meeting. We start with them. And in that meeting, it was after the meeting we realized that we had shared everything about our company with them. And I remember at that meeting I said, I had to take a decision. Everybody said we should merge with this company. I stood up and I said, we are not merging with this company. We will go solo, we will make it, and we'll do it ourselves. And the meeting ended up in a deadlock. After we failed, that company hired almost all our staff, including all the best technical guys that we had. Some of them are still with the company today. But what lesson am I trying to derive from it, and how does this relate? Is the fact that when you are starting up a business or when you are looking at your career, think long term. I have a 10 years plan. By 2019, this is where I want to be. And every year I continue to review that plan. That this is where I want to be. So what Prophet Yusuf is trying to tell us, and what he was trying to interpret from that dream, was that there will be a time that everything will go smoothly. For 7 years, everything will run. Like I said, my company was number one in the mobile industry for 14 years. We were dethroned January 2012. We didn't care about competition. In 2007, the iPhone was launched. And I remember then, this iPhone, it won't last. It won't succeed. But we didn't understand that iPhone came to challenge the status quo. Before we knew it, 2008, the Chinese started coming and started eating us from below. iPhone was eating us from above. By 2010, 2011, Samsung came and started eating us from the middle. And before we knew it, we lost our number one. But if you understand your brand essence, like the way we understand our brand essence as a company, that we will transform. I'm sure 70% of people would have a Nokia phone right now in their pockets. Takbir. For those who have, thank you for contributing to my salary. For those who don't have, you are not helping your brother. So as a business, as a career, there will be your best times. Once your career, and this is a personal development lesson I learned recently. Once you start clocking 7 years, once you have 7 years experience, start rethinking your career. Start thinking how you are going to reinvent your career. 7 years, start rethinking how you are going to reinvent your career. If you have a product or a service that has been selling for 7 years, in fact, no company does that. By the end of this year, iPhone 5 will be launched, right? And you people will buy. Inshallah. Samsung Galaxy S2 was launched last year. You have bought it. S3, you are going to buy it. End of this year, we are going to launch Windows Phone. Windows Phone 8, you will buy. Because if you don't buy, I don't have a job anymore. So if you have a product or a service, you need to start thinking, how do I continue to improve it? But guess what the king did with Prophet Yusuf, alayhi salam? And that's why, as a leader, when you see trends, Prophet Yusuf was the likes of McKinsey & Co., the best consulting firm in the world. Boston Consulting Group, BCG, the number 2. Okay, there's always fights between them. They have this amount of data that they will always tell you the trend of what is going to happen. One of my brothers was asking me, what is the future trend of mobile? And I was saying it's content. So he knew the trend, and he was a consultant to the king. And the king took what? He took his advice. So another lesson, if you have experts in a certain field and they're telling you something, take their advice and take a decision. So the king decided that he was going to make Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, was going to make him the prime minister, and he was going to be in charge of that vision. It was now their own project, Vision 2010 or Vision 2020. And for 7 years, that 7 years of boom, they started storing their wealth. They started storing their harvest, because they knew that there's going to be another 7 years of drought. So if you grow in your career, you will meet a brick wall where you cannot move forward again in a particular company or in a particular profession. And you need to move out. And I'm happy that one of my brothers said it, that after working for 20 years in a particular company, he had gathered enough value. Remember the 7 years of boom. I'm sure he has, and we share the same vision. By 42, I don't want to work for anybody. The 20 years of working, he has gathered enough value that will help him for another 20 years. So if you don't learn any lesson from Prophet Yusuf, pick up this lesson. That there will be years where things will be good, and there will be years where things will be bad. But you need to prepare for the rainy day. And that's why a company as big as Nokia today is still surviving. Why? Because we are very liquid in cash. All the investors, everybody has downgraded us, but we don't care. We have enough money to still spend. But the question is, for how long are we going to continue to spend our own money if we don't start reinventing ourselves quickly? The same thing for you as a person. How many of us even have savings? And I'm happy that my brothers have come to present, and I encourage you to be part of it. Even if it doesn't bring any return on investment, at least you still have your money that you can call for after some time. We have seen people who have been sacked from banks today, and there was nothing to fall back to. And when you see the life bankers live, sometimes I ask myself, am I in the wrong profession? But I console myself that at least we still have Ismaila and Azim. And we can always call on Allah. There are bankers today, I hear when they get to a certain level, they just slam you a Prado Land Cruiser. I was discussing with a friend of mine who works in a bank. And they were arguing on they were trying to advise their boss, who has just been promoted to a GM, what kind of car he should get. So he had a choice of a Lexus A230 or something. And he had a choice of BMW X6 2012 and a Land Rover Discovery 4 and a Land Cruiser. So he had a choice of which one he was supposed to take. I said, He has a choice. But guess what? If he does not save or plan for the next 7 years, when a tsunami, a Sanusi tsunami will come, a lot of the bankers did not expect that this Sanusi tsunami will come. And they were living life. Sometimes when we go, I walk inside one of the bank buildings. And when you come in, you see all of them with their very tight suits, sparkling. And when you dig deep down, a lot of them is running on loans. And that's why they are stuck there. And that's the life a life that is ephemeral. So the lesson we can pick from the story of Prophet Yusuf is that there will be the 7 years. We're using 7. It might be 10. It might be 5. It might be 20. But there will be some years where things will be good. But there will also be some years where things will not be so good. The question is, are you prepared for it? Because of time, I'll quickly go to one of the, I hope we picked out the lessons from Prophet Yusuf. That when you are good at something, give word of mouth, let people know about it. That word of mouth marketing would help people know what you do. And someday somebody will call you. If you need to train your staff, if you have a company, you need to train your staff on customer service. If you need to train your management team on product innovation, you can call me. I'm not so expensive. And you can tell your friends too. It's supposed to be multiple streams of income. You can tell them that I do product innovation. So if you have a business and you want to innovate on a particular, you want to bring I do business model generation. Please allow me to do some marketing. Because these are some of the lessons. Let's start practicalizing. That's my area of expertise. I do personal branding. And I'm also a social media communicator. So if you want social media presence, how to grow your social media presence, please talk to me. Okay, they said I should send a MICA check out. Tech bill. So tell people what you do. The word of mouth marketing will spread. And prepare for the rainy day. Quickly, I'll close with the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. And I'm taking this from Surah to Toha, Quran 20, starting from verses 25. Quran 20, starting from 25. And this is very interesting for those of us who, like my brother says, is interested in politics, and he wants to become a leader. For those, we'll find ourselves in leadership position one way or the other. Either as the head of our families, as head of a business, as head of a team, or even head of a committee, even within MICA. But there are some leadership lessons, personal leadership lessons that we can derive from these verses. Allah says, Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Okay, Prophet Musa said, Allah says, Kola Osinowo Sojourn. Prophet Musa was saying, oh my Lord, expand my chest. Kola Osinowo Sojourn. Expand my chest. I'm not a scholar to start explaining what that expansion means. But from understanding I can pick here is, as a leader, what Prophet Musa was asking for, Allah sent him to go and face Pharaoh, to go and challenge the status quo, Tekbir. Allah has always sent his prophets to go and challenge the status quo. So go and challenge the status quo of Pharaoh. He can't be a Togut on the earth. Go and challenge him and tell him that he needs to come back to the way of Allah. But before Allah sends you out, he equips you. And Prophet Musa was not shy to ask for help. And he says, Kola rubbish, roll surgery. Oh my Lord, expand my chest. As a leader, what you need to lead people or to face a particular challenge or a complex problem, you need that confidence. If you are leading a team or you are leading a business and people that are following you see that you don't have confidence, they lose trust in you. You find it difficult to lead them. And that's why today, a lot of people find it difficult to follow the president of Nigeria. Why? Because they see that lack of confidence in him as a leader. And as a leader, one thing you don't want to do is for people to see that you don't have confidence. In The Long Walk to Freedom, the book by Mandela, the autobiography of Mandela, he was asked in one point, they were on a plane. They were traveling, I think, from Durban to, I can't remember one of the cities in South Africa. And it was a small plane. He lost one engine. And everybody they were panicking. And he said Mandela was reading in his newspaper. And he continued reading. They were panicking. We're going to crash everything. Mandela continued reading his newspaper. The plane landed successfully. Nothing happened. So one of his aides now asked Mandela, Madiba, how come you're not scared? How come you're not afraid that we're going to crash? We lost one engine, did you know? And he said something which is very instructive. He says, I'm the leader. I was very scared. I was afraid that we're going to die. But if I, as a leader, start showing that I was scared, that I was afraid, all of you, maybe you would have fainted or collapsed even before, and that you would have caused a lot of panic that would not help the pilot to maneuver properly. And one lesson there is that as a leader, even in the times where you are scared, when you are afraid, it's a difficult thing to do, but you don't show it. One thing I've seen from the leadership of my own company, and I keep referring back because we're in a state where we're in transition, as we always put it. Even when everybody writes, Slot is going to buy Nokia. We've seen all sorts of stories. So person is going to buy Nokia. And you see the leadership of Nokia when they address the employees. And I remember when they said, look, we're going to sack 10,000 people. 10,000 lives will lose their jobs. And he said it, we're going to sack 10,000 people. But it's necessary that we need to do this. We're going to close down so factory because our competition is not manufacturing in Europe. Everybody is manufacturing in China. So why are we spending so much money on this? These are very tough decisions that we need to make, but we have to make it. And when people started asking questions, he said, we have to do this. And I'm confident that we'll get back to number one. I'm confident. And when he was joining the company as a new CEO, he bought 1 million shares of Nokia. Very audacious thing to do. You take your money and you buy 1 million shares. And he says, we are confident, we're going to get back to number one. Even though you might be afraid. So, Prophet Musa alayhi salam asked Allah should give him that confidence. He should give him that boldness. And scholars have told us in the explanation that, in the Sirah, that Prophet Musa was bold, was courageous. In some stories, I don't know whether it is true, that he was huge, even in terms of physical being. And he commanded that courage and boldness. Then he continued, said, Wa yesrile amri. Oh Allah, make my task easy for me. You might be good at what you do, but you don't want to do too many difficult things. And if you can't do it, ask for help. If you ask for help, it makes it easy for you. Then this is the one part I really like the lesson that comes out from me. Wahule lukudata min lisani. Oh Allah, remove the impediment in my speech. Takbir. I'll tell us this, and I've said this story several times, even on MICA floor. I went to Tunisia in 2006 to compete at the African Middle East Public Speaking Championship. And there were 11 of us who were participating. Nigeria did not have an entry. I was in another course, and the Nigerian delegates came and said, Nigeria does not have an entry. Would you represent Nigeria? I said, okay, no problem. What's the topic? It was 2 hours to the competition. I went back to my hotel, changed into my formal dress. Then I started putting my thoughts together on how to address the topic. Then I remembered, it's not even by your power. These guys have won the national speaking competition of their countries, and you're going to compete against them. And I sat down there, and as our fathers will say, Amashenu wuje wuje, Takbir. That's if you know what to. And I started saying, Rubbish really Sojourn. Wauli lukudata min lisani. Wayafkawu kauli. And I continued to say, and I started doing some askar. Some of them they have shared with us today. And the person sitting beside me is a Tunisian. After people were busy preparing their notes. He had finished reading his notes. He closed it, brought out his Quran from his pocket and started reading. I said, I'm finished. I said, I'm finished. There was no Quran for me to also start reading. I was not an Hafiz to start reciting. So me too, I said, okay. And he was reading. I said, this guy, Martini, I will be no Quran. Immediately he finished reading. He put the Quran in his pocket. There was a foyer because we're backstage. He went outside. From that same jacket, he brought a pack of cigarettes and a lighter, and he started smoking. I said, yes. I said, correct. And I said, okay, I think I have hope. And we went into the competition. As Allah will have it, I won that competition. I became African Middle East Public Speaking Champion. And later that year, went to Korea to represent African Middle East at the World Speaking Competition. And I came second. But what this tells me is that even somebody who is a prophet of Allah still begged Allah and says, oh Allah, remove the impediments in my speech. I've seen people who had come to the boardroom to make presentations. These are people with years of experience. These are people who are experts in their field. But when they come to make presentation, one question, and we have this vice president. He will sit down throughout the presentation, and you are doing your presentation, he's looking at you. He won't say anything. Once you are done, he will ask you one question that will throw you off balance. And you start saying, and once you start saying, you lose confidence. And once you lose confidence, you lose trust. Once you lose trust, you lose credibility, and everything falls apart. But Prophet Musa did not say, because I'm bold, I'm big. After all, I'm the prophet of Allah. He still said what? Rabbi shrah li sadri, wa yassir li amri, wa ulul uqdata min lisani. Oh Allah, remove the impediment from my speech. If you don't learn anything today, go and memorize this. In some parlance, they will say, that's Ashiri, non-canon. There is no Ashiri about it. It's there in the Quran. And I've tried it several times. If they say this person is a tough person, he can tear you apart. They said there is a tough person. We're negotiating something with Guarantee Trust Bank. We're supposed to do a partnership some 2 years ago. Maybe some of you would have seen it. And they said, this person is tough. Tough. That person, she will tear you apart. And as we are going, people were preparing. Well, you prepare. Not that you not prepare. You have your presentation. But you know it's not by your power. And this prayer also says it. Rabbi shrah li sadri, wa yassir li amri, wa ulul uqdata min lisani. Oh Allah, remove the impediments from my speech. If I'm going to address any conference, and Allah has blessed me that I've been able to address certain gatherings, I always say, oh Allah, remove the impediment from my speech. And that is the same thing Prophet Musa was saying. In some tafsir of the Quran, they tell us that the reason why he said this is because he was a stammerer. But the lesson I am picking, I don't know about you, but the lesson I am picking from this is when there is a challenge, when there is a complex problem, oh Allah, give me that confidence to face it. Because the people that succeed in their careers, in their businesses, are the people that are able to solve complex problems. The reason why they pay people above ₦1 million monthly salary, which some people call armed robber salary, is because they're able to solve complex problems. And complex problems is all about simple solutions. It's not about giving complex solutions. Simple solution. Lagos traffic is complex. A complex solution is a traffic radio. I hope I'm not touching some spots. A simple solution is to provide ferries. Ferry from Yanoworo to Ebutero. Ferry from Mile 2 to CMS. Ferry from Ikorodu to Aja. Ferry from Ijede to Badore is 6 minutes. And it doesn't require too much thinking. It's not rocket science. I took a ferry from Manhattan to Staten Island, free. That ferry takes over 1,000 people, one way. I had like 5 to 10 of those ferries, one way. Because I didn't have enough money to go to Ellis Island to see the Statue of Liberty. And I was going to be hosted by some people in Staten Island. And they said, I'll take the ferry. I said, okay, no problem. How much am I? They said, it's free. And I entered the ferry. And people walk in Staten Island and live in Staten Island and walk in Manhattan. It's like living in Ikorodu and walking in VI. And the ferry is free. You know the time. And I looked, I was overwhelmed. And I said, there must be some business opportunity around here. The ferry was not branded. And you know me, I'm always on brand. There's no branding. So it was empty. And I'm trying to understand, what is the business model? By the time I asked, it was operated by the government. But I said, if you're going to translate this to Lagos, it's simple. Get this kind of ferries. As a government, you have the money. Put this initial investment in it. The government knows how to demolish. Demolish that part. You know that place where we park, where people drop people after Yanoworo Bridge that causes that third mainland traffic. Demolish the entire place. Settle them. I'm sorry if you live around there. Demolish the entire place. Put multi-level parking. You are the government, you have enough money. Invest in 3, 4, 5 ferries there. Let people come and park their cars, and they pay for parking. And you tell them ferry is free. There's a concept in business called freemium. It's one of the things I advise people on when they're trying to develop their business models. It's called freemium. You give the basic for free, and the add-ons people pay. And guess what? You will recoup your money back. You put those ferries there. You tell people it's free, but you need to park your car. Okay, people will decide to keep their car in their house and make sure that they say no buses will come to that area. Or it's only BRT that can take you to the place. You make money from BRT. So that median, so there will be BRT from motorways. That median that is wasting, where those boys will stand every night and knock your window, ask for your phone. God save you if your windows are down. That median, you can create a BRT lane in between that will take you down to Yanoworo and say no buses, no Okada, nobody. You can still go on Third Mainland Bridge, but we'll put a toll gate. So people will be forced to take the ferry. And when the ferry comes, you talk to MTN, Etisalat, and you say, MTN, this particular ferry, I'm giving you exclusivity for 1 year. It's 200 million naira. MTN will pay. And that money that you are collecting, you can use it to maintain those ferries. And what have you done? You have solved the social problem with social innovation. And that is the true value of Eko Nibaja. That was a digression. But the key lesson here also is that Allah should make our speech when we are addressing our clients. There are some very tough customers for those who work with customer service. Some customers are deliberately tough. Not that they just want to be tough. But you also say, rubbish, rolly, surgery, wayasri, amri, aulukudat, and limin lisani. Then he now continued, wayafko wukauli. Make them understand my speech. It's not about talking, but do they understand what I'm saying? Because it's understanding that leads to people accepting what you are saying. Then he continued, he said, that this is very deep. He continues, asked Allah to give him an helper amongst his own. In business, there's what we call, and in personal development, collaboration is key. And we've talked about it earlier. You can't do it alone. You need to look for people. In some places, they call it leveraging. You have the intellect, somebody has the money. You collaborate and you solve it. And he told Allah who he wanted. Arun, my brother. And he says, let him share in this task with me. That's what you call delegation. As a leader, when you get to a certain level, you can't do everything. You will burn out. You need to delegate to people. Then finally, they said, so that we can glorify your name, oh Allah. These are some of the leadership lessons I can pick out from. And there are lots that we can pick out from the life of Prophet Musa. But from the Quran, these are some of the lessons that we can pick out. And it's important that we continue to do this on an ongoing basis and start looking at some of these verses and see how we can apply it. We always tend to think that application of the verses of the Quran only applies to our spiritual life. But it is not only spiritual. There are 5 principles that guide my own life, that guide everything I do. And it is based around these 5 areas. Number 1 is spirituality. Number 1 is intellectual. Number 3 is my social politics around my community. Number 4 is my economic development. Number 5 is my physical well-being. And everything that Islam has taught us revolves around these 5 things. Your spiritual development will take like 90% of these 5 things I've said. But the remaining 10% we can't overlook. I'll pause here. I use the word pause so that someday we can have taken this as a personal challenge and see how we can start taking some of these lessons and start sharing them, and how we can apply them to our business life, how we can apply them to our personal development and our careers. It's my prayer that all these lessons that have come out of these verses of the Quran, that Allah will use them as a blessing for us in this month of the Quran, in this month of Ramadan.
Amen.
I pray Almighty Allah will make us understand it better than the way I've said it.
Amen.
And I pray that Allah will make this as an evidence for us on the day of Yom Al-Qiyamah, not as evidence against us.
Amen.
And I pray that the success which we are trying to achieve in this world and in the hereafter, that Allah will make it come to us.
Amen.
And He will count us amongst those whom He has shown His mercy upon. And He will count us amongst those who will line behind the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of Yom Al-Qiyamah. أقول قول هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم. سبحان ربك رب العزة ما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. صلوا على النبي الكريم.
صلى الله عليه وسلم. Takbir. Takbir. Alhamdulillah for that wonderful one. It was not motivational, but it was inspirational. May Allah continue to bless my brother and give him the good of this world and the hereafter. Please let's recite Surah Al-Kawthar for that. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shaniyaka wal abtar. So we'll take a few questions. Please, if you want to ask a question, you can show hands. So we'll take questions. Number 1. Any other questions? Okay, we already have some questions anyway, so we'll take those ones and then we'll add 1, then 2, 3. Any from the sisters? Any question from the sisters? Okay, none. So we can take the ones we have already, then we'll take the other questions, inshallah.
Okay. Now, I'll try to remember one of the questions. I think one of the brothers that asked the question has left, so I'll leave that. My brother talked about mentorship and how some of these things, how personally I'm mentoring people, if I get that correct. Okay. The way I see mentorship is an ongoing relationship. I've seen people who approach me and said, I want you to be my mentor. And in some instances, I've told them that, look, I'm not qualified to be your mentor. And I'm being honest because there's some experiences too that I also need to gather. Especially when people start saying, oh, I want to be a life coach and things like that. I'm not yet at that level. There's still a lot of experiences I need to gather. But when it comes to okay. Are they calling the other? Okay. But when it comes to mentorship around my area of expertise, yes, I can. And I've tried as much as possible, as Allah permits me, to mentor people who I've had contact with. And one of the things that always affect mentorship, and one thing I learned from my own mentor was you need to define an end goal. And that's where a lot of people run away. The first thing I tell them is go and write up a 10-year plan and come back. Once you ask that question, people don't come back again. But for the few people that come back, you now try to guide them around that and see where you can help. So mentorship is key, and I agree. And I think there's a lot of our brothers around, even within MICA, that could serve as mentors. And I think there needs to be a formal system to get mentorship in place. And I know that MICA will look into that. Then there was a question from my sister around flexibility. It's a very tricky one. But this is the way I always look at flexibility. What is the core? What are the things that are non-negotiable? My salat, my kalima, the pillars of Islam, they are non-negotiable. The express decrees of the Quran are non-negotiable. The Quran says you should use hijab. I don't know what flexibility you want me to, that you want out of that. And our brothers in the past have always said, hijab, when it comes about hijab, it's also flex. I hope I'm not diving into terrain where I'll go and sink. But it's flexible. You keep stretching it. You keep stretching your hijab until as much as your faith can carry you. But that you now negotiate whether to use it or not. That's not the flexibility we are talking about. That you now start negotiating whether I need to fast or not. When you fulfill all the conditions of fasting. Oh, we had a luncheon in my office. And I'm supposed to be there. And at the luncheon, they are going to serve us food and drinks. Because I don't want to be an outcast. Or I don't want to be, I need to be flexible. After all, it's only one day. These are not the kind of flexibilities we are talking about. When we talk about flexibilities, there are flexibilities around the things that are things that are different from the non-negotiables. I'm trying to think of an example now. Let's say in a business environment, there are some flexibilities that you can start looking at. I'm trying to relate it because I've never been in a situation like the situation of our sisters, where they had to start negotiating. And I'll give an example coming from people that I know who work in a particular company. They all gathered themselves and said, look, we can't, if we start leaving our office and start going to the mosque to go and pray, you have like 4 or 5 sisters, you have 2 of them in the same unit, you have some brothers in the same unit, and it said, okay, let's look for a space within the office that we can all gather together, appoint somebody as an imam who will lead us in prayer so that we don't end up missing our prayers. So they gathered themselves and they looked for a space at the back of the office. They usually put like all their, it was more like a storage. So they cleared the place. In fact, they started in one of the stores inside the office. One of the bosses came and said, he wants to use the place. We all know why the person wants to use the place. Maybe for no reason. So they moved out. So they cleared the back of the office, got mats, got kettles, and every time, everybody knew when they are supposed to go and pray, and somebody would lead. So they say, other Muslims within the community started realizing, oh, there's a place that they converge at the back of the office to pray. So let's converge there and pray. And that was how that awareness started building. And before you knew it, the management now decided, now call them to negotiate and said, look, this place is not okay for you guys. negotiate with facilities management and agree on a space that you can use for your prayers. I'm talking about a bank, Stanbic IBTC, Tekbir. And they negotiated with the facilities management and they allocated a space to them. And it now became formal. And one of the sisters said, when she has to go and pray, her boss will not question again. Where are you going? Because the person knows, the boss knows that the person is not going all the way to the mosque. That they have a mosque where all of them gather, and it's only for a few minutes. It's not like they will sit down there and start doing a salatu. After they finish doing their prayers, everybody can go back to their work. So those are some of the flexibilities that we're talking about. But that you know, somebody will not say you won't pray. I do it most times, and I say, look, they are fixing meetings. And it says, oh, can we fix this meeting for Friday, 2 o'clock? I don't tell them, oh, it's Jumat. I say my calendar is blocked. My calendar is blocked. I don't have space. And somebody, oh, it's Jumat. Because by the time you start saying it, they'll be like, oh, these people have come. You want to start. You tell them, I'm sorry, I can't attend the meeting. It's 2 o'clock. My calendar is blocked. And people will start learning not to put things around that. It's so bad in my office that even HR will tell you that, will tell other non-Muslims that are not fasting that you can't bring water into the office during Ramadan. Although some people still try to flout it, but it's an HR communication that people are fasting, respect, is what we call cultural sensitivity. So when I see somebody eating in front of me in the office, I don't tell the person, I'm fasting, no. Did you see the memo from HR? Okay, let's talk about cultural sensitivity. Those are some of the, it doesn't stop me from fasting. But I'm just telling the person, be culturally sensitive. Those are some of the flexibilities you bring about. And one principle you need to have in mind is, you cannot negotiate your core. Those things that are statutory, you cannot negotiate them. And I remember the story of Imam Hassan al-Banna in Egypt, when people were fighting in the mosque around how many rakah Tarawih is supposed to be. Is it 8? Is it 10? Is it 20? There are some mosques that you go to, they do 10 rakahs of Tarawih, right? Some mosques, they do 8. In Saudi, what do they do? So we'll not start fighting over that. The question we should ask ourselves, what is Tarawih? Is it non-Nawafi? So so if I go to a mosque and they are doing 10 rakah, we do 8. And I said, no, my 8 is complete, I'm going out of the mosque. Or if I go to Saudi and they are doing 20, and I say, no, our own is 8. Those are some of the kind of flexibilities we are talking about. Some people will Tekbir. Don't let me go to an area where I'm not competent to do. So I hope I've answered your question. Next question.
Assalamu alaikum once again. I want to ask our lecturer, and I want a straight answer immediately. Please, do you have a blog?
I have a blog that is ongoing. It's at www.kolaosinowo.com.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Excuse me. My second observation is that I will try to, MICA should try to please put their lectures on tape and probably sell back to the audience. This is a very fantastic lecture. I would rather not want to miss. I want a repeated version of it. Maybe you can, your YouTube can be recorded. I don't know if it can be done. So please get that noted. Back to my first questions. Please and please and please, there are millions of Muslims youth that need your skill, your expertise, your lecture, and In fact, everything about you. And I want you to advertise more of your blog. If you can still go on blogger.com, it will be better. Please.
Okay, you've just given some people more power to harass me. Jazakumullah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me seek the indulgence of the lecturer to answer one of the questions the brother posed. We have commenced selling the tapes of lecture several years back, but now we've moved to CDs. It's just unfortunate today the person in charge forgot the CDs at home on his way here while he was rushing down. So now for this particular segment, the ES just informed me that this one was going to be a different package. You know what we normally do is we have 3-4 hours of lecture which we made into 2 CDs, and we sell each CD for 250. The 2 for 250 naira. Now this one we want to do is put it in a package. You know, he has been on here for close to 4 hours. Astra is approaching, and we started around to 12 to the so. And the one we had yesterday, while we were coming in yesterday by virtue of the traffic, somebody was telling us, "Wallahi, this is fantastic." So and I said, "Okay, what is fantastic? We'll download it and we'll put it in a collection and put it in a package." So that means you are going to have more than 2 CDs, as it were. Now that is going to be done. What we want to employ you people is to buy. Look, if you look at how long we've made some of these CDs and the patronage, well, you'll be alarmed. Share on your give us the floor in or when they come, what will encourage us is to buy. Because when we buy, you listen and they will eventually uplift you. There's a particular one of those titles we've been carrying around now for over 2 months. Well, I buy 10 copies of it. And people, the day the man came here to give the lecture, the whole hall was filled. And everybody was nodding their head while the sheikh was speaking. But now, by the sheikh's lecture, so we are on, years back we were doing tapes. But now we are now realized, feeling the pulse of members, and want to listen to something while we are going to work. And most cars now, with developments, they are not coming with tape, the tape recorder, they come with CDs and the likes. We even wanted to do DVD. But the father is doing the recording, dubbing for us. Not everybody will have the means of, getting to listen afterwards. So that's why we've done it with these CDs. So we're going to do a package. Like this one now, if it's 4 CDs or 5 CDs or 6 CDs. So you have Kola Osinowo as a lecturer, personal developments in the Quran, So you will have that, and all the CDs will be branded. So when we now say the CDs for 2,000 naira, I expect that by virtue of what you want to gain, you pay for it. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is, sometimes you have an idea, you have a concept, and you lay it out in your head, put it down, but at the end of the day, you find it difficult to carry out these things, probably due to distractions or 1 or 2 things. What are the ways one can ensure that some of these ideas you have, you can carry them on? Secondly is, some of these topics you dealt with, how can we apply these principles to our masjid? Because when you go around, the state of our masjid is so sorrowful that, like a brother said, that if you want to know where a mosque is, you know from the odor of the toilet, you can know where our toilet is, you can know where the mosque is. I mean, things it's generally getting that bad. How can we use this principle to rejuvenate our masjid? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.
Who's the next person?
Okay, let me quickly answer the two questions. First thing is, if you have an idea, let me wait for you. If you have an idea, we always tend to think that it's only us that have that idea. And we always want to closely guard that idea. And we don't want to share it with people. And not sharing your idea with people, you don't have the resources to take that idea forward. Any idea that is not executed, as far as I'm concerned, is a nightmare. Because it will continue to haunt you. So one key step of developing an idea into a workable plan is to share it, especially if you don't have the resources to execute it or you don't have the time to execute it. Share it with people that are close to you. Remember the principle. Share it with people who believe in you, who believe in your vision. And before you know it, they will help you expand it. And before you know it, it will become something big. It's very, very important. It's not that non-sharing that causes a lot of ideas to die. And for me, that's the best way I would answer it. On the second one, I'm very touchy about this one. Because I've seen non-Muslims set up what they call, there's a company called Church Consulting. They consult on how to set up a church, the business of church, how you recruit workers. You see people writing on their CVs, I worked for the Freedom Project, I worked for the Capstone Church, and they put it there. It's a whole package. And honestly, until one of us decides to say we want to start Masjid Consulting, and maybe then, if people now realize that, oh, there's a way we can help the mosque. But maybe it's because of the nature of Islam. We don't see things as business. We do things fi sabilillah. And people tend to take it for granted. The fi sabilillah, a lot of the principles that we use in our own business, we don't tend to use it in mosque. And I'm a big champion of mergers of mosque and associations, and Muslim associations. You can't be having 3 asalatu on a Sunday on one street. There's nothing effective about that. You can put, why not merge? You're on the same street, is it not the same? Wow, it's really painful. If you go around some places in Mushin, Nikman, in Shomolu, you see these kind of things. And I ask myself, can't they just merge this asalatu into one? Pull all the resources together and have a bigger space. And let people know that Muslims are here. And you can start looking at, if I go back to the Syria, the mosque of the Prophet was always the center of activity. It was the center of learning. It was the center of business networking. It was the center of spiritual development. Until today, a lot of the top universities in North Africa, a lot of them came out of the mosque. You have Al-Azhar in Cairo. It was just an extension of the mosque that has grown to become a university. But I think it also tends to do with the orientation. But I hope our own generation will be able to do something different. But guess what? Our own generation do not have that time. It's a dilemma. Maybe someday we'll start doing masjid consulting. But I agree with you that it's so bad. I've been to I don't know if it has changed. There's a mosque I prayed in Mushin. The window of the person's room opens. I don't know if it's the imam or the owner of the house. They built a mosque. I'm trying to remember this street in Mushin. It's off for Lateju. And then when you go straight, there's Nawaruddin at the junction. There's another mosque across the junction. It's Shokumbi, I remember. There's another mosque there. On that tree, there are 3 mosques there in a stretch of 100 meters. And that mosque, I prayed and the window of the room opens up into the mosque. So when we were praying, I was by the window and somebody passed, or they were talking in the room, and I was distracted at the point. When we finished praying, I realized that it's just the curtain that covers and where you are going to perform ablution is right by the road. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Takbir. Please let's recite Surah Al-Kawthar once more for him.